Prior to Smash Ultimate, every series in Smash got at least one stage per each entry, with some very minor exceptions. What I'm attempting to do today is follow that up and give ideas for suitable stages for every first-party Nintendo franchise for the eventual Super Smash Bros. 6. Mario has surprisingly not had a new game since Ultimate, compared to Odyssey between 4 and Ultimate and an immeasurable amount of games between Brawl and 4. But there's still a lot you could go off. Bowser's Castle would be cool to represent Bowser. It is in the Paper Mario stage, but that barely counts. I'd like to see something more standard as a Bowser's Castle, like what you see in the new Super Mario Bros. Series, 3D Land, and the spin-off games. The Mario Kart 8 version of Bowser's Castle in particular looks very pretty, but that's mostly because we haven't had a Bowser's Castle since. But it could also be something like World Bowser from 3D World, or Bowser's Kingdom from Odyssey, which would be great. A new Paper Mario stage would always be welcomed, especially considering the only one we have is mostly just based on Sticker Star. Paper Mario the Origami King in particular, the best Paper Mario game, should definitely get a stage. Really anything from that game would work great considering how outstanding the visuals are. Various locations I'd like to see are Shogun Studios, Shroom City, Shangri Spa, or the origami version of Peach's Castle. A Dr. Mario stage was considered for Smash 4, and I think it's fair especially considering Dr. Mario is a fighter after all, if you didn't know that already. I think it would work well as one of those arcade/pixel stages a la 75 meters and Mario Bros. And finally, I think it'd be nice to have a Mario Sports or Party stage, something to represent the spin-offs. Maybe a tennis court could work. For Donkey Kong, obviously we should get a Tropical Freeze level as it is the latest game. Specifically Donkey Kong Island to hammer home the whole freeze part of that game. It would also make the stage stand out from the rest of the Donkey Kong stages, seeing as they are all jungle settings. That said, Donkey Kong Island in general could be a good stage anyway to represent the Donkey Kong series as a whole. There are also plenty of other locations from Tropical Freeze that could work, but we'll leave it at that for now. For Zelda, something from Tears of the Kingdom of course, but if not that, there's a lot you can base a stage off. For instance, another Breath of the Wild stage, something like the Shrine's Interior, or perhaps the corrupted Hyrule Castle, or Clocktown from Majora's Mask, which is a very iconic location. The Zelda series is well represented in a number of stages, but the actual stages are kinda creatively bankrupt after Melee, at least. It would be nice to get an interesting new stage. All the Metroid stages in Smash are a little too dark for my liking. There's a lot of vibrant and interesting locations from the Prime series that could be included, but I'm gonna go with the later area of Metroid Dread, Ferenia. Or something based on the boss room where you fight against Raven Beak would be a great setting, and his character would be a great inclusion as I said in my last video. For Yoshi, well, let's bring back Woolly World first and foremost. But I guess the only real thing would be a Crafted World stage, I guess. This series is way too overrepresented considering it's just one Mario character. It'd be like if a new Luigi's Mansion stage was included in every Smash game. Why is Yoshi even considered a different series to Mario anyway? Kirby is probably the second worst represented series in Smash, primarily for any post-Sakurai content. It's basically crumbs, like 2 old Brawl remixes and Kirby and King Dedede's Final Smash. That's it, besides Spirits I guess. Either way, a modern Kirby stage is very overdue. There's a lot you could go off, something from Return to Dreamland, Triple Deluxe, Planet Robobot, or even Star Allies. There's a lot of room for creativity, but of course I have to go for something from the Forgotten Land. Really anything from that game could work. The safe one would be Natural Plains. Wandaria Remains would also be pretty interesting. If I had to make the call, I would go for the final boss area in general. It could possibly be a layered level, not dissimilar to the Tomodachi Life stage, a combination of the interior section where you fight off against Leongar/Morpho Knight, and the top of the tower on the helipad section, maybe with a few platforms, obviously surrounded by the deserted, ruined city, and Fector Elphilis as a stage hazard. I think it would be a very interesting stage. I always thought Fortuna, specifically from Star Fox Zero, was made for Smash. It's such an interesting location with its weird vine-lined plant life or landscape, its cloudscape and the bird boss fight with the platform halfway through the level. Most notably, it's just different from the rest of the Star Fox stages, which are all like the same thing. All kinda dark levels where you fight on a spacecraft. The visual style in general would have worked great with Ultimate's art style. I was a little surprised, especially with Incineroar's inclusion, that Ultimate didn't get a Pokemon stage, and that now means it's been 3 Pokemon gens without a Smash stage. let alone any spin-offs, but I think it's fair to just look at the gens that don't have a stage for now. For Gen 2, Sprout Tower was considered for Melee, so it could be... what am I kidding, that would be a really boring stage. I'm also not too sure about Gen 3 to be honest. For Sun and Moon, specifically Ultra Sun and Moon, and I said this years ago in an older video, but I've always thought this was a great idea, and it's Ultra Space. A transformation stage warping between the different Ultra Space locations, and of course including the various Ultra Beasts, and all the different locations having slightly different platform designs. For Gen 8, and I know this is kinda boring, but I love the idea of a Pokemon Stadium 3. Of course the stadiums or gyms in Sword and Shield are a key component of it, so I think it would work well for that game in mind. Unlike the previous 2 stages, what this stage would have are Gigantamax Pokemon, specifically 4 type variations, new ones of course, and as the stage morphs into them, a Gigantamax Pokemon would be summoned, I assume in the background of the stage. The 4 typings could be Ghost, maybe a haunted setting with Gengar, Fairy, maybe a flowery garden thing, I don't know, with Alcremie, a Steel factory industrial setting with Melmetal, and a fighting type stage, maybe a boxing ring or something with Machamp. For alternative typings you could have Bug with Butterfree, Poison with Garbodor or Toxtricity, and Dark with Grimmsnarl. And finally we have Gen 9, which can just be Area 0 or something, I don't know. And of course, there could also be Poké Floats too. An update to that stage is long overdue. To be quite honest, I've never gotten around to playing Mother 1 or 3, so I don't have the most interesting ideas. There could be some interesting 1 and 3 locations that I'm overlooking, but I'll just stick to the second game for this video. Personally, if I had to go with a specific location, I'd go with the end of the game, specifically the Cave of the Past, as well as the final boss area. I've always found that location in that game to be very memorable and striking. It's quite eerie and stands out from the rest of the game. Otherwise, there's surely a lot of other locations that could be chosen, like Winters or Summers or something. I don't want to piss off F-Zero fans, but I really don't know what you could do with another F-Zero stage. I mean, what, another racetrack? They're all the same thing. I would like to see the Mario Kart 8 versions of Big Blue and Mute City in particular, but of course there's already been stages based on those anyway. I guess if I had to go with a specific track, I would go with either Red Canyon, Sand Ocean, White Land, or Casino Palace. For Ice Climber, honestly, I don't know. I think this is one of the series where I'm just gonna have to cave in and not give anything. Yeah, I guess there could be a 3rd Snowy Mountain stage, or something. This series in Smash is really stretched thin, considering it's one nearly 40-year-old NES game. Well, actually, you know what? Let's not be lazy, let's try to get creative. Base of the mountain. It's not even snowy, maybe a little bit of grass and some snow, but it's mostly just rock. The enemies come by like the snow gremlin and the birds, and the stage gimmick is that the platforms are breakable if you jump into it, and the name is Mountain Base. Moving on. For the number of Fire Emblem characters in Smash, there's a severe lack of any stages. I guess Awakening and 3 Houses got a stage each, but there's only 4 in total. Hot take, but I don't think the Fire Emblem series has the most memorable or interesting locations. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but either way I feel like if they were gonna base a stage from a specific location or game from the series, it'd be more than likely the most recent game, which as of this video is Fire Emblem Engage. The most generic choice would be the Somniel, as it's the main hub of that game, as Garreg Mach Monastery was to 3 Houses. I'm not 100% sure if it's a stationary floating island or if it can move around, but what could make it a little more interesting is if it were a travelling stage where it travelled across the 4 corners of Elyos, and maybe some other locations like the Evil Ring Island thingy and the final boss location. Otherwise, I don't really know. By the time Smash 6 does come out, I'm sure another Fire Emblem game will have released, so I doubt this Engage stage would ever happen. But yeah, let's just keep this Fire Emblem stage simple, a location from the most recent game. Moving on. Next is Game & Watch, and I have 3 ideas. The obvious one would be Flat Zone 3. There's a lot of Game & Watch games that could be incorporated into a stage that haven't been used yet. We'll go with 5 games here, which is the same number as X. Parachute, Turtle Bridge, Greenhouse, Rain Shower, and Mario Cement Factory. I would have included Octopus as I find it to be the most iconic Game & Watch game, but it would probably clash a little too much with Mr. Game & Watch's Final Smash. My next idea is it could be based on the Game Boy Game & Watch Gallery games, although I guess that's more Mario if anything. And finally, I was thinking of maybe breaking out of the mold of having them be 2D stages and finally having a follow-up to Poké Floats being a Nintendo console float stage. A bunch of Nintendo consoles, controllers, and of course Game & Watch games can float by as platforms, kinda similar to the backgrounds of Splatoon 2's Octo expansion levels, although I'm not too sure how tied to Game & Watch that is exactly. Well, anyway. This feels a little unbalanced giving Kid Icarus Uprising more stages after it got 2 and 4, but whatever, one of those were terrible, so it doesn't count. Uprising in general has far too many great locations that could make good stages. A few in particular that I'd like to see are the Space Pirate Ship, Pandora's Labyrinth being very Star Fox 1-y, and the Lunar Sanctum. And there's probably a bunch of other levels, but it's been so long since I played that game. While it would be nice to get a Wario Land or even World Stage, I think something from Get It Together would be more likely. Maybe something based on Daily Grind, or more fittingly, Friendless Battle, because that seems directly inspired from Smash Bros. Although both of those seem extremely boring now that I think about it. Otherwise, I think Diamond City, just in general, would be great, to represent the entire WarioWare series. I imagine they could squeeze in a lot of references and WarioWare characters in the background too. For Pikmin, I think it would be pretty obvious to see a stage based on Pikmin 4. The game hasn't come out though yet, so it's hard to say what exactly it could be, but let's be real, there's a lot of room for creativity for a Pikmin stage, considering the two in Smash are both grassy first level themed. For one, Pikmin 4 seems to have brought back the cave system for the better or worse, well, definitely worse. So I think generally a cave would be a good choice for a stage, referencing not necessarily Pikmin 4, but 2, as well as some of the interior sections of Pikmin 3. Otherwise, I'm sure there would be some interesting environments from the 4th game that could be utilised in a stage. To be more specific, there could be a snowy environment such as the Valley of Repose or Distant Tundra, or a more water-based level like Distant Spring, Perplexing Pool, Quiet River, etc. There's a lot you could do, as I said, so I just hope it's more than just another grassy stage. I'd never expect this to happen, but I really think it would be nice to give Rob a home stage. Now that I'm thinking about it, that Nintendo Float's stage idea would have worked more for Rob than Game & Watch, so maybe you could make that a Rob stage instead. Otherwise, a Gyromite stage would be great. Not a retro style stage, those are boring, but something like a 2 or 3 layered platform stage, and having 2, 3, 4 pillars on a stage. Every now and then they would rumble and either slam downwards or upwards, burying anyone caught under it. Definitely like a thwomp. Shove in some Gyromite music and we are golden. For Animal Crossing, well, we already have 2 identical stages and also another island stage. If it were based on New Horizons, it would be a combination of Smashville / Town and City and Tortimer's Island, so I don't really know. I guess a way to change things up is to have different seasonal variations and possibly even the special events like, well, I don't know, Halloween, Bunny Day, and Toy Day. Also, playing from the actual ground rather than in floating platforms similar to Tortimer's Island would make it stand out a little more too. Or maybe you could do some interior setting like the museum or something. I really don't know, to be honest. Well, actually, no, I do. Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival stage. Next is Wii Fit, and I don't know, Obstacle Course, Tilt City, the Chicken one, another Woohoo Island stage, I guess possibly a minigame collection transformation stage or something. This is a really hard one. I kinda wish the Mii's and Wii series in general were all categorized into one series in Smash, but whatever. To be fair, I really doubt they'd make another Wii Fit specific stage. I have no idea what you'd do for Punch-Out other than a boxing ring. I really don't know what to say for this one. There's only 3 games in this series and all of them take place in a similar looking boxing ring. I was really trying to have at least one stage per series, but this might be my limit. The only idea I have is possibly doing a lazy Smash Bros 3DS type stage where it's just a pixel stage based on either Punch-Out or Super Punch-Out. Or, I know this is stretching it, but maybe something based on the training scene from the first game, which is, just New York. I don't know, let me know if you have any ideas in the comments. For me, Mii Plaza should definitely become a stage, or possibly something from Miitopia. Although you have to realize that in Smash, for whatever reason, the Mii series isn't even a thing. All the quote-unquote Mii stages here are not even Mii Universe games. Tomodachi Life and Street Pass Quest both had their own icons, as well as Wii Sports, but I don't know if you'd count that as a Mii series. Whatever, moving on. I don't know how other people feel about this, but Xenoblade 2 was done dirty with its stage in Smash. It's literally just the opening location. There are countless better locations that could have been picked. You know what, I think this is a massive issue of a lot of modern Smash stages. Don't get me wrong, there's still some good ones here and there, but from Brawl, mostly 4 onwards, a lot of the stages have been creatively bankrupt. Either generic lazy 2D pixel levels, traveling stages that don't have actual design to them and or are based on the very beginning of the game it's based on. And the only way they try to make up for this is by having characters dicking around in the background. Anyway, this is just me procrastinating because the only Xenoblade games I've played is 1 and a bit of X and 2, so I'm not familiar with the series, at least enough to give a good stage idea. We could get another Xenoblade 1 stage to be fair, say the Mechonis. Otherwise, if we were to get an X stage, something based on either the sprawling alien landscape of Mira would be very pretty, there's a lot to work with there. Or going by Smash trends, as I said, it could just be the main city of New Los Angeles. Though I really doubt we'd get anything from X by this point. It's pretty much going to be something from 3 more than likely. In terms of the 3 stage, the big sword in the background, Sword March, could maybe be interesting. I don't know. Skimming through some of the locations of that game, the Faunus, Pentelis, and Cadencia regions all look visually appealing. But yeah, just let me know if there's something more suitable from that game. For Duck Hunt, come on, I don't know. Does every series really need a stage? Hogan's Alley, no, Wild Gunman, that counts, right? Or I guess you could have a modern 3D HD take on the location of Duck Hunt, the forest, or whatever it is. Seeing as the one stage we already have is a boring pixel one, wouldn't mind seeing something a little more creative than that. Or maybe we could have something based on the disc shooting game. I don't know how that would work as a stage, but yes. Splatoon is an interesting series in the sense that it doesn't have a normal stage because Moray Towers is weird. So I don't think you have to go over the top crazy for a Splatoon stage idea, but there is a lot you can go off. I do like the idea of playing in the statue thingy from the ending of Octo Expansion, just because it's cool. Or maybe just a basic stage based on Inkopolis or something, but I think it's best to stick with Splatoon 3. Really, any of the multiplayer stages could work, but if I had a choice, I'd go with Alterna, the single-player location from that game. And for the final series, ARMS? Ninja College. Honestly, ARMS doesn't really need another stage. That may be all the major or fighter-represented Nintendo series out of the way, but there's still a lot of other possible sources for more stages, and just some general ideas I have. Say for one, how about being able to play on every stage in the game with a small battlefield form? I was also thinking that PictoChat X could be done, similar to Flat Zone X in the sense that it combines all the elements of the previous 2 stages into the ultimate one, or maybe not ultimate one, oh you get the point. For new series, I think a stage from the mysterious Murasame Castle would be nice to include, as it is a major Famicom game that is borderline absent in Smash. Alongside that line of thinking, how about an Excite Bike stage as well? I'm thinking something similar to the Mario Kart 8 course. A Rhythm Heaven stage would also be nice to see. On top of the Pokemon stage, I also gave this idea in an old video of mine, but having a stage titled Final Remix or something along those lines where it's a transformation stage going across various Rhythm Heaven rhythm games, or it could be similar to the WarioWare stage. Astral Chain is a pretty recent Nintendo game, so it should probably get a stage. Personally, I'd like to see the Astral Plane. It may be a little boring, but I've always really liked it visually. It definitely is more of an abstract setting. But you could also incorporate other areas of the game like the city through the portal thingies. I guess there's the Living Room Nintendog stage, which would be very similar now that I think about it, but I still think a Chibi Robo stage would be great, set inside a massive house. Or it could maybe incorporate something from another game like the DS game to stand out. Otherwise, I didn't really think of any concrete ideas for any of these series, but I think it would be worth listing them out nonetheless. A Brain Training stage, Ring Fit Adventure, Golden Sun, Nintendo Switch Sports or another Wii Sports stage in general, a Snipple Clip stage, although I guess that's become somewhat old by this point, and possibly something based on those more creative Nintendo Switch type games like the Labo or Game Builder Garage games, something similar to Miiverse or PictoChat maybe. And well, that's about everything. Let me know of anything I've missed or any good stage ideas you have in the comments section. Otherwise, thanks for watching, stay tuned for my next video which I think will be on items, don't quote me on that. I may make another video before that. Anyway, goodbye.